Brad Underwood and the Illini will be hosting an elite shooting guard this weekend. And also, we have positional grades from the matchup against Kansas. Locked On Illini. Let's go.
You are Locked On Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Illini. Thank you for making us your first listen every single day. Simple reminder, we are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Sunny Verma. You can find me at IlliniCast. You can find me at TheSunnyV. And this week, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook. Just do a quick search for Locked On Illini. Please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. Helps the channel immensely, and it costs you absolutely nothing. Today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate GM. Ultimate College Football Head Coach is a brand new mobile game that is completely free, has no ads, and is 100% playable offline. Begin your coaching legacy today. It's been a while since we've let off Locked On Illini with some basketball talk, and that's exactly what we're going to do today. It was announced that the top guard out of the state of Kansas, Keaton Wagler, will be visiting this weekend. Now, this is notable because Keaton, I don't know if it's Keaton or Keaton, so I apologize. Keaton apparently will be making an announcement early next week on where he's going to want to play basketball. This is also a recruitment that kind of came out of nowhere. Illinois offered a while back, and Keaton also has offers from Minnesota, Colorado State, and Southern Illinois. Now, again, this seems to be a trend as of late. We had almost a month stretch where we're offering top 5, top 10 type of talents and going up against the likes of the Dukes and North Carolinas. Now, obviously, a lot of those didn't work out. You had guys like Jasper Johnson commit to Kentucky, and Caden Boozer seems like he's going to stick with his original plan of playing with his brother for a different university, not in Champaign. And now Illinois seems to be locking down visits with guys where maybe it's fair to say Illinois is the most prominent brand in the offer list. Does that really mean anything ultimately? No, I don't think so. But a little bit about Keaton Wagler's game. And again, I apologize if I'm not saying that correctly. Those of you who are my everydayers, I've talked about Brad Underwood's recruiting and what 3 traits he seems to really focus on in all the players he's essentially recruiting from here on out. And what are those 3 traits? Height, versatility, and shooting. Now, thanks to the good old boys at Armchair Illini, I got a taste of a little scouting report, and they did post a video. You can find more videos on YouTube of Keaton's games. There's 3 traits of Keaton's that stuck out to me: height, versatility, and elite shooting ability. He fits the mold of what Brad Underwood is trying to, the type of player that Brad Underwood is trying to bring to Champaign. At 6'6", he could be playing point guard at the college level, at least from what I saw. And apparently that is what teams like Minnesota want him to do. I don't think he's a star player. And quite honestly, I think he's one of those guys where, again, you kind of leave on the bench for the first year or two. Just let them develop, let them get their bodies right with Fletch. And then maybe by year 3 and 4, they're your third guy off the bench. Like playing key roles, especially when you've been in the system that long, but not a guy that you really plan on counting on as a starter. Again, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but it's like a B-, C+ Kasparis Jakušonis when you talk about the height and the versatility. Now, I consider myself merely an amateur scout. So what I did is I dug up the internet for scouts from actual professionals. And one did say, and this article is from 24/7 Sports, he's a versatile athlete with a great length and a scoring threat wherever he gets the ball. He has a great sense of pace and ability to get to his spots and knock down jumpers. Also creative finisher, Wagler utilizes strength and finesse to score inside. Wagler is a willing rebounder who makes the most of his second chance opportunities. In transition, Wagler gets out ahead of the defense and can create for himself or his teammates with consistency. And the scout there was Zach Schrader. One of the most impressive, versatile stars in the state, Wagler can dominate with his length, his explosiveness, his handle, and his shooting from deep. He was a ringleader of the most talented team in the state, and he made sure they took home the trophy in the end. He doesn't rack up huge stats on the ultra-talented team, but he is undoubtedly worthy of every accolade. Now, again, it sounds nice, and from the limited tape you can see what kind of role that he would have, not just on a college basketball team, but in particularly on a Brad Underwood team. Again, he kind of fits that archetype of the big guard who can shoot that Brad Underwood's looking for. Now, you look at Keaton's accolades, you're talking about the 215th ranked player nationally, the 36th highest guard, the second highest player from Kansas, albeit the highest rated guard from the state. Again, these are the type of guys we kind of recruited a couple of years ago, and we were really happy with. So a lot of people are going to be a little underwhelmed when it comes to some of the other guys that we have been recruiting, some of the bigger names who really are able to generate excitement and clicks when it comes to their potential recruitment. But again, kind of like what I said about Brandon Lee in a previous video, I think Keaton could be a program guy. He can be the mold of what kind of player Brad Underwood wants in this system. And again, he doesn't have to be the star player. Imagine having the B- version of Kasparis coming into the game when Kasparis is tired. That way you really don't have to be forced to shift the way you play. If you like a certain type of game, it makes sense to continue to recruit that type of game. And let's be honest, after next year, Kasparis, Kylan Boswell, both of those guards might be gone. And in 2026, maybe by then, Keaton will be ready for a bigger role on the team. You can't just find guys like KJ's everywhere. So even if you have a lesser version of him, well, that skill set is really valuable, especially in college basketball and especially for a Brad Underwood team. The fact that he wants to make a decision quickly next week and me seeing his offer list gives me reason to believe that the Illini could be getting a commit very, very soon. Now, it could be one of those where, again, I mentioned this about Brandon Lee, this could be a matter of how hard they push. If Keaton comes to Champaign, feels the love, likes the players, gets along with the coaches, and the Illini say, hey, we're ready for you to commit to be in our 2025 class, I think it might be done. But what I also fear is they could be like, hey, Keaton, we really like you. We want to continue to evaluate your game. We really think that you could have a place in Champaign, but let's just wait on it a little bit. At that point, if Keaton's really ready to decide on where he's going to play college basketball, he may go with one of his other options. Either way, I think the Illini definitely have a type. Keaton fits that type, and I'm looking forward to seeing if we have a breaking episode sometime next week talking about a commitment. Hey, Locked On Illini fans, I want to take a moment to give you a heads up on a brand new mobile game that I think you're going to love as much as I do. Ultimate College Football Head Coach. In this amazing game and simulation, you get to step into the shoes of a head coach and lead your college program today. Can you imagine actually being the head coach of the Illini? From recruiting players and hiring coaching staff to overseeing training camps and handling school scholarships. You'll control every crucial detail of your program. It's all in your hands. Will you be able to handle the pressure? And here's what I really love about the game. You are responsible for calling offensive plays during the games. Your strategy will not only determine the success of the football season, but will determine the shape and the future of your program. Ultimate College Football Head Coach is completely free, has no ads, and is 100% playable offline. You can play on the go, as you want, and when you want. And of course, we have a special offer for Locked On Illini fans. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB, all caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. Make sure to take advantage of this perk as it will get your team off to a strong start. To download the game, just visit ultimate-cfb.com or look it up on the app stores. Ultimate College Football HC. Begin your coaching legacy today. All right, it's about time to wrap up the evaluations from last Saturday's 23-17 victory the Illini had over Kansas. But one final episode, I wanted to kind of just talk about the different grades on the positions as I did last week. I kind of want to do this every week. I'm watching these games 2, if not 3 times. And so I want to kind of constantly give updates on positions that I think are playing well and positions that I think are struggling a little bit, and basically trying to track their progress. This week, obviously, we're going to be playing Central Michigan on Saturday. As of now, I think we're 20-point favorites. We opened up as 18-point favorites. That number has gone up a little bit. So moving forward, we'll talk a little bit more Central Michigan. But again, I just want to put a bow on all this Kansas coverage that we've had. First and foremost, we'll start with coaching, as I did last week. When it comes to the coaching staff, I'm going to give Aaron Henry an A. I think the scheme that he put forth was fantastic. It's funny I say this because coming into the game, I was just so incredibly worried about one of the coordinator's performance. And it turns out he's the one who came through. And it's the other one who I think struggled a great bit. Barry Lundy Jr., I'm going to give a C+. I just didn't like the game that he called. I don't know if I've said this before. I don't know if it's a Barry Lundy Jr. coaching staff thing or if it's a Luke Altmaier thing. But for me, I just don't think Luke is being as aggressive as he can be. I don't know if that's the way he's being coached. I don't know if that's the play calling. But I do feel that in the fourth quarter, when they let Luke just kind of throw the ball a little bit more, it's not a coincidence that the offense finally started gaining some yards and first downs, which ultimately led to points and the victory. Speaking of Luke, the quarterbacks, I'm going to give a B-. I think Luke showed shades of our concerns from last year, where we know he's not a vocal guy. We know he doesn't have that sort of leadership qualities that the staff does really prefer in their quarterback. But I was concerned with the fact that there were throws there that he just didn't make for some reason. I'm not saying he didn't connect. He didn't make the throw. He didn't throw the ball. And so that makes me wonder, was it because he was second-guessing himself? We all know last year, one of the main issues with Luke was he was just a split second too late when it came to just trusting and making the throw. And we're hoping that this year, as a sophomore, that he will have built that confidence so that he throws it without thinking. Next up, we have the running backs. This is a hard one to grade. I mean, I think the best running back we had was our true freshman, Khalil Valentine, in the fourth quarter. Caden Fagan, who all my everydayers in here know I'm a huge fan of, didn't really play all that great. Aiden Lawfrey, I think, almost zapped a lot of the momentum our offense had on that first drive by dropping the easiest touchdown that he could possibly have in his career. Just dropped. The best I can do for this running backs room is a D. And again, the best I can do for this running backs room is a C-. Again, they just weren't hitting the holes, which granted the offensive line wasn't really giving them when it came to the rushing aspect, which we'll get to later. The offensive line still certainly has issues, but Caden wasn't able to get loose and break off one of his normal Fagan. Aiden, like I said, had an awful drop. For what I keep talking about being the best room on the team, the running back room in this particular game did not help at all. I'll tell you what room did help, though, and that's the next one. The wide receivers. The wide receivers are graded as either the highest or second highest room for the Illini, for me, at least for this game. And without them, I'm not sure if there was any chance that Illinois would have escaped with a victory. Now, we all saw the Zachary Franklin plays, whether it's in the first half where he caught that one-handed while being held by a Kansas defensive back, or even later on when he saved a drive by keeping his toes inbounds while he's diving out of bounds and coming in with the grab. You had Pat Bryant making some clutch catches late in the second half, and all that was done because Luke Altmaier finally decided to throw them the ball. I've said this in previous episodes. Luke needs to understand just how talented that wide receiver room really is. Just throw it in their general direction, and they're experienced enough. Now, I'm talking about Zakari and Pat Bryant, that you need to trust them to come down with it, because over the last 2 weeks, they've proven that that's what they're going to do. I shudder to think where we would have been without the wide receivers playing as well as they did against Kansas. The tight ends, I feel like I'm cheating on, because I think I'm going to give them the same grade as I did last week. It's unfortunate with Cole Rusk out that there's just not a pass catcher there. And so automatically, I don't feel like I'm capable of getting that position group an A if you don't have a guy who can catch a pass from that group. So I'm just going to go with the solid B. When it comes to blocking, run blocking, pass blocking, they did fine. They did their jobs. They did what their expectation level was. But again, I do think the absence of Cole Rusk really, but what really hurt them arguably the most was the play of that offensive line. And honestly, I'm going to give it a C, and a C grade only because the pass blocking was okay. Luke Altmaier had enough time. It's the run blocking, which I just don't know what they're trying to figure out. We have very solid tackles, but the interior side of that offensive line is just not helping out the running backs, not opening up any holes. And that's concerning, because I was very high on this offensive line coming into the season because I thought the coaching staff was. But right now we're still struggling with that aspect, and it's going to be something definitely to keep an eye on, because it may not affect us much in that Central Michigan game, but with that showdown against Nebraska in 2 weeks, the Huskers defensive line could eat offensive line up if we're not careful. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now, through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook. So overall, the offensive side of the football didn't exactly have the highest of grades. So you would assume that if we pulled off the upset like we did against the number 19 Kansas Jayhawks, that the defensive side will have some higher grades. Well, let me tell you, starting with the defensive line, I'm going to give a B-. Now, again, the stats aren't there. If you take a look at the box score, you're wondering who the notable players were. But upon second and third viewing, I think that might have been by design. By Aaron Henry's plan was essentially to not let Jalen Daniels beat you with his legs. Try not to let Devin Neal beat you with his legs. Now, Neal was gashing our defense left and right, and we are very lucky that Penn State decided to hire Kotelnicki away, and because this new offensive coordinator for the Jayhawks, for some reason, decided to go away from just rushing it every single time. I genuinely feel like if they rushed it 4 out of 5 times, Kansas would have won this game going away. But for whatever reason, they didn't. When it comes to the way we played Jalen Daniels, again, it was forcing him to make a throw, and the throws just weren't there. So the defensive line, while not outstanding, I wouldn't even say above average, I'm starting to think that I'm not going to hate on them too much, because I do think that they did what they were told to do. Now, whatever job the linebackers had this game, I am telling you that they failed. As I mentioned, Devin Neal, if given the opportunity, he could have duplicated his last year's performance where he averaged 12 yards per carry. Rosiak missed a couple tackles, and honestly, that linebackers, everyone else, there was no one notable when it came to the tape that I was watching. And certainly that's going to be a position group that's going to be analyzed and scrutinized over the next couple of weeks. Now, having said that, I got to give the flowers to the secondary, the defensive backs room. I'm going to give it a solid A. And trust me, I'm close to giving it an A+. We all know Xavier Scott won Defensive Player of the Week. He got some national accolades, which was all well-deserved. 2 interceptions, 1 return for a touchdown. The defensive backs were able to force Jalen Daniels to make some plays. Now, granted, a couple of Jalen Daniels throws were just easy. I think Brett Bielema in an interview called it something along the lines, if they throw it to your hands, catch it. But on a couple of those throws at the same time, the Illini defensive backs made some plays. And that's what you want those guys to do. Again, I humor myself. And this is how I know this sport is humbling, is I was so incredibly worried about the defensive backs room. It was my second biggest concern on this team coming into the year. And they've produced 8 takeaways. The Illini have only given up 1. At the pace that they're going, and keep in mind, this is without Terrence Brooks, who did not play a single snap. Again, I don't know what's going on with that. He just has not apparently proven enough to the coaching staff. But despite what might be their most talented player not playing, the secondary is arguably the best group that we have had 2 games into the season, and someone that we're certainly going to need later on when Big Ten season starts. That's going to wrap it up for today's episode. Please, on your way out, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Watching these videos takes time, but I continue doing it. I like doing it. I know, again, this is more of an amateur look, but I figure if I'm fortunate enough to have that extra time to watch this film, at least I can give you guys the college football diehards. I know not a lot of you guys are necessarily interested in this, but those of you who are, again, I'm here producing content for you guys daily, every single day. Nobody else in Illini media can say that. So please, all I ask in return, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Shout out to my audio downloaders in Hong Kong, which has overtaken the second spot for the country that downloads this episode most. So I don't know who you are in Hong Kong listening to Locked On Illini, but just know I appreciate you. And please say hello in the comments or leave me a review and let me know you're listening from Hong Kong. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate all of you. And again, we're going to start previewing Central Michigan. We have another couple prospects who will be visiting the Illini very soon on the basketball side. I just haven't been able to get the opportunity to watch their tape yet. So expect those very soon. Thank you for making Locked On Illini your first listen today. Now go check out the Locked On College Football podcast. From NIL deals to never-ending conference realignment rumors, Spencer McLaughlin gets you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron. You can find the link to the Locked On College Football podcast in the description, so you don't need to search. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. That's it for today. See you tomorrow. ILL. Love you guys.